Hello everybody, welcome back to the Sim Grid and welcome to another wonderful interview here for the More Female Racers series by Thrustmaster. My name is Chaz Draycott and I'm delighted to be joined today by the wonderful Sarah Moore. Sarah, how are you doing today?
I'm not too bad, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad at all. Just very, very busy at the moment, as I'm sure we all are now. The world's going slightly back to normal a little bit. Talk to me, how's lockdown and everything been for you? How's the whole sort of last, well, it's nearly 12 months is a bit of an understatement, really. It's nearly 2 years now, isn't it, really? How's it been?
Almost. Yeah, it's been good. I mean, it's been a roller coaster, which I think it has been for a lot of people. But yeah, I think doing the sim racing has kind of kept me going. To be fair, I've met lots of nice new people and some new friends. So yeah, it's kept me in the right place, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a good thing for sort of helping mental health, helping keep you sharp, and of course, you know, like you say, meeting some great people as well. And that's one of the best things about sim racing is the wonderful community behind it. We can see just to my right over here that you have a wonderful, glistening career already, and on your shoulders, you could say. Just for anybody that doesn't know you quite that well, could you just quickly explain yourself and your racing history to us?
Yeah, I mean, I started in go-karting when I was 4 years old. So my dad himself used to race. He's got his own race team in our own airfield, so it was quite easy for me. I started in karting when I was 4, moved into the Ginetta Junior Championship when I was 14, won that in 2009, and then I went on into endurance racing. I won the Brit Car Endurance Championship in another Ginetta. And then from there, I've kind of progressed on, and I'm now racing as part of the W Series.
Fantastic stuff. So it's been quite the rise, really, as well. And I mean, karting as well at 4 years old. I mean, I've got a 6-year-old, and he can barely put his shoes on the right feet. What sort of? I mean, if you can remember, what sort of like mental challenges do you come across at that sort of age? Because surely there's a lot of learning that you have to do very quickly.
Yes, I mean, I can vaguely remember it now, to be fair. I mean, my dad had to build me a special, he called it a Barbie car because it was bright pink. I really didn't like the colour, but, you know, he had to build it specially for me because I was very tiny when I was younger. So it's specially built for me. But yeah, I vaguely remember it, to be honest. And I think at that age, it's one of those things you just kind of do it without realising that you're doing it kind of thing. It's a lot easier to pick up when you're younger, whereas you know, as you get older, you find things a little bit harder to pick up. So yeah, it kind of, obviously growing up, it was kind of second nature to me. So
yeah, that's it. I suppose back then you've got no sort of like fear factor or sort of overthinking things or seeing things in a different light. You just got what's in front of you and you just get on with it, don't you, I suppose? And that's probably what helps. I mean, I know a lot of people that come from karting, you know, it's the main background, isn't it, really, in motorsport? If you've got to a good place, then you've usually come from karting. But I know that without sort of having any mental blocks in front of you at that age, it's the perfect sort of honing ground for it, isn't it? You just get on with the job and just go flying straight from there. Now, talk to me about Britcar, because it's a very interesting championship to be involved in. There's all sorts of cars on the grid, all sorts of classes. What class was it that you were in for that series that you won?
I think it was class 4. It feels like a lifetime ago now because of COVID. Yeah, I think it was class 4. So we were in the Ginetta G50, which is the old G55, what is now. And we had a bit of a souped-up engine, so it was a bit of a machine. But yeah, we were up against the TCR cars in our class, which was quite difficult, really, because they had traction control and ABS, front-wheel drive, so they could just plant the power and not have to control the rear as much, whereas we didn't have either of those assists, so it was literally all down to the person behind the wheel. It wasn't so bad in the dry because we had the raw power, but in the wet, we couldn't get anywhere near the TCR cars just because they had traction and ABS. So it balanced out throughout the year. Yeah, it's a fantastic championship. I mean, they have, if you look at it this year, they have the Pragas, which in my opinion is a bit 50-50 about those, if I'm honest. They're a fantastic car, but in the Brit Car Championship, I don't think it's the right place for them with all the other cars on the grid. But it's, you know, they have the mix from those to your Nissan, you know, to the likes of your people that are just starting off in, say, your Lotuses and your TCR cars. So they've got such a wide variety of cars, and I think the championship itself is, you know, as a whole is a fantastic championship.
And it's a good place for people to learn about traffic in motorsport, because I mean, as you've obviously found out, with endurance racing, one of the main things you'll come across is traffic, and a big variation in pace over the course of a race. Because if you've got multiple drivers in just one car, you can see one car early on going really quickly and flying off in front of the pack, but then when they do a driver swap, it'll suddenly drop back a little bit and it changes. So having that sort of constant amount of cars around you that aren't on the same pace, it's a bit of a different bag in the head, isn't it, really, with the talent that you need to sort of negotiate that, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, because obviously you're concentrating on trying to win your own class, so you're concentrating on focusing ahead. But you've obviously also got the cars coming up behind you that are in the faster class, so you've got to be able to kind of manage that and watch your mirrors, and you're never, a bit like sim racing really, you never want to move out of their way, because they're already planning when they're going to overtake you as they're approaching you. So you've just got to kind of stick to your line and just keep an eye on your mirrors and look for them coming through. But it kind of the same applies as when you're catching the slower cars. You've really got to be able to plan ahead. You don't want to be the person really to kind of make that last minute move up the inside, because it's such a risk to take in some cases, because that person might not have seen you. So yeah, it's all about pre-planning and watching your mirrors.
Yeah, and obviously just sort of managing the situation itself. It's easy for me to, as a commentator, I've seen it many a time, and I get to sit up here and go, oh, this is what he should have done instead, or oh, they shouldn't have gone down the inside there. They should have just waited. But it's so much easier for me to sit up here and say it. Now, you mentioned sim racing there. So obviously it's been a fantastic thing to have for everybody since the whole of lockdown and COVID. But what is it that first got you interested in sim racing?
When I got through into the W Series in 2019, they had their own sims that we use. So we were using them throughout 2019 to learn the tracks for the year. I was never really a big sim user before then. As I say, I've raced for years, but I've never been one for sims. They usually make me feel sick, to be fair. So I stayed away from them. But I had no choice in 2019. Obviously, I needed to learn the tracks and learn them quick. So that was the only option I had. I went and bought a very basic sim at the start of, I think it was the end of 2019, actually, off a friend. And then that ended up coming in handy, obviously. We went into COVID, and the W Series ended up running their own E-Series, which I did. And then I became part of a few championships through a friend. I got into iRacing, and then I got into ACC and ditched iRacing. And now it's just ACC, and pretty much I think most of my stuff I do is through the sim grid, actually. So I've met some great friends, and they kind of just keep dropping me messages. Do you want to do this? Do you want to do that? Yeah, why not?
Well, when I'm an absolute massive iRacing fanboy. That's where I started out, and it's where I still am now. It's where most of my broadcasting comes from. But at the same time, I hear the nickname for it, ice racing. Once you've been on Assetto Corsa or Assetto Corsa Competizione, I hear it called ice racing a lot, because you just don't. It feels like the car floats around a lot, and in ACC and AC, it feels like there's actual gravity. It feels like it's on the ground and it's planted. You can feel what it's doing and bouncing around, and it makes all the difference, doesn't it, really?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, from my perspective, I kind of just want to be able to jump on a sim and be able to set relatively decent times and not have to play around with the setup too much, because I'm basically just want to learn the tracks and enjoy the racing. And I find that on iRacing it involves too much of setup. I mean, I do race for a team on iRacing, so I do the odd endurance races, but the amount of setup needed to get anywhere near a fast lap, it just takes too long. Whereas on ACC and AC, I can pretty much jump in and kind of go with a fairly baseline setup and be within 2 seconds of what I would say is a good lap. So I mean, iRacing is nice for the endurance stuff, but I definitely spend most of my time on ACC. So
I don't blame you on that as well. It's a fantastic sim in itself. It's just, I always find that with immersion, sound is important, and ACC just seem to have nailed the sounds, like the feel of just the car and the cockpit itself. All the little squeaks and whistles and bangs and all of it. It's just epic stuff. Now, of course, women racers in esports, of course, very important at the moment with the whole push that more female racers is doing as well, and as SimGrid has done since it started. What are your thoughts on the presence of women within esports? How important is that to you?
it's just as important as it is in, day-to-day life, just in any sports, to be honest. Obviously, as I mentioned, I'm part of the W Series, and that's all about promoting women within motorsport in every aspect, not just as drivers, engineers, mechanics, everything. So, the more that I can do to help women in sports in any aspect, even across, sim racing, just to get more women involved. And, you never know, they may go on to, race in real life. So I think it's just important just across sports in general, to kind of bring the percentages of women up to try and match the men eventually one day.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously the movement into the real world. So in terms of your own career and your own progression, what would you say have been your biggest challenges progressing through your career as a female in motorsport?
I get asked this question quite a lot, and in all fairness, I've not really faced any challenges. I think because I started at such a young age, to me, it's all fairly normal. But I think the people that do start a little bit later on in life, probably in karting, at the high level karting, if they go into the high level karting or straight into cars at a competitive level, I think that's where the challenges come if it's something that they've not grown up with, because everyone obviously within that sports season was a new person, has never really heard of their name before. So that's where the challenges come. But I mean, personally, I've never had any challenges myself. I've always been surrounded by obviously my amazing family and great friends, and they've always been supportive. So.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I know a lot of drivers that have been up through the ranks in their career and progressed to, where they want to get. But as long as you've got a good team of people behind you, and even if it's not a team as in an actual racing team, but, just family and friends and just that support makes all the difference, doesn't it? No matter what.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say family more so than friends, because, sometimes friends come and go, but family is definitely the key. And sometimes obviously friends are family. So yes, I'd say that is, the key most important thing.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to have that support. Now, of course, the More Female Racers series itself, which is on behalf of this interview, that's why we're here, effectively, if I get that sentence the right way around anyway. What does that series mean to you? Like, how is it for you to see something like this cropping up in esports?
Yeah, it's great just to see so many women together. I mean, I've been doing the series since it started, and if I kind of look back to the start, I mean, I was pretty awful at the start. I think I was near the back of the grid. I didn't do very well at all. But if I look to where I am now, the MFR has helped me progress on sim racing so much, and I've met, as I say, so many great friends through there, who are also supporters of me in my real life racing, which is great. But yeah, it's just great for me to see how that series has come on from day one. It's something that if I can and if it fits in, I'll always be part of, just because I started on day one, and I just love to see the progress and the people that keep on sticking at it, and meet all the new people coming in, and just see it grow. It's great.
Yeah, I was going to say on the driver development side of things as well. I mean, I commentated on the first series of it, and unfortunately, other clashes meant I've not been able to continue since then. But that you see different drivers every single round, even just getting better and better. People may start the season very new to the cars, very new to the sim in general, or any sim or sim racing at all, and they'll be maybe 10 seconds off the pace, and then suddenly the next round they're like 3 seconds off, and then the next thing you know, they're actually 1 second off the top spot at the end of qualifying. And there's just amazing development, isn't there? It's incredible how quickly that can happen.
Yeah, definitely. I think I was probably one of those people back in the first series that started, about 6 seconds off. But yeah, I think bringing the coaches in and working with the coaches to develop, obviously when you begin or when you start off in sim racing, I think that's I think what they've going on there is fantastic. Obviously, it's down to that driver and their coach to put the time in to help them progress. But over the series, we see that working a lot more. And I think especially in the third series now, you've got some very, very competitive drivers. I think on average, I'm usually, I think, within 2 to 3 seconds of the roses, which I would say I'm quite happy with that. If I'm within 2 seconds of them, then I'm okay. I can live with that. But yeah, I think, the coaches do a fantastic job of helping us, even just with the setups and guiding us through the track in preparation for the races. So I think, the whole setup of the championship is really good.
And obviously, if you are someone that is brand new to sim racing, not just even ACC or iRacing or whatever, how important would you say is coaching for someone that is new? Not maybe even just to sim racing, but racing in general. You know, knowing the physics and the behaviors of the cars.
You kind of just covered it there. It is all about learning the physics. I mean, the racing line is obviously always usually the top one. You've got to get the racing line right first before you play too much with the setup. I mean, in my experience, the setup doesn't need too much adjustment. It is kind of down to a little bit of your driving style. Some people have a little bit more aggressive driving style, and some people are a little bit smoother. So, you know, there is some alterations to make to the setup on that front, but it's all obviously as a beginner who's never even raced before. It's all kind of, you're starting from scratch. So yeah, you're learning your racing lines. Sometimes you need to adjust your actual brake itself to be able to get the right brake shape. The same with the power. So it is literally kind of learning step by step, really. And then, you know, your final bit is kind of playing with the setup. But I mean, even when you get down to the last kind of 2 seconds, really, some of that even is just still in your racing line. You could be a foot out on your racing line on one corner, and that can be worth a couple of attempts. So yeah, having a coach is just to watch over you whilst you're doing your laps, or to be out on track with you for you to follow, is always very handy, just to find kind of, you know, the bits and pieces that you need to get the perfect lap together.
I like how you assess that there with, you know, the racing line is the first bit you get right. Because at the end of the day, if you've got a car, whether it feels terrible or whether it feels great, if it's not on the racing line, then it doesn't matter how it feels, because, you know, you're not putting it in the optimum position to use all of what the car can do. So I like that assessment of it, actually. I've never even thought of it that way. So even I've learned something today. There we go. Now,
in the right place first.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah, you don't want to be in the gravel or anything. That's not really anywhere to, you know, you could be off in the gravel and someone will go, oh, I think we need to go 2 clicks down on the right rear damper or something like that. And you're like, yeah, find that out in the gravel, mate. So in terms of the More Female Races series, if I say it correctly, I've done that twice now. What can we do, even on top of what we've done now, to engage more women in sim racing, do you think?
I think it's just all about promotion, and promoting it in the right areas and across social media. If you can get the hits on social media, and obviously the people within the series itself promoting it on their own social media, if they have social media, or just talking about it. But I think social media is the biggest key for everything these days, to be honest. That's where everything is seen. That's where everything is grown. So yeah, social media is definitely the key. But just kind of spreading it around friends, family, trying to get, you know, obviously as many people involved as possible.
It's all about unlocking that confidence, isn't it? Because I know that in the female community on the sim grid, you know, I've seen all the comments and everything from the series itself, and, you know, obviously reaching over to the transgender community as well. It's unlocking that confidence in somebody to just come out and get on with it. You know, like there's obviously a lot of mental blocks sometimes holding people back from that, because they sort of almost feel an instant disadvantage, don't they, sometimes, in the way that, you know, there is sometimes physical differences in the motorsport world, in the real world, but in sim racing it gives you that chance to be on a level playing field, doesn't it? I think that's one of the main differences, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you know, I would say in the real world, in a race car, once you're behind the seat, we're all exactly the same, and we're all out there to do the same thing. And the same thing applies in sim racing. I mean, off the back of the More Female Races series, I have now got my own Discord channel, and all of the females that have been involved in the More Female Races series at any point, or, you know, any of us have met along the way, or new people that are wanting to get involved, are all part of my community on Discord. And away from, you know, the SimGrid channel where you have got the males, obviously it's nice to have somewhere for all the females to get together, and all of us just to be able to chat together. And I think it's nice for them to know that they've got that place for us all to go and talk, and not have the men involved, so to speak. So yeah, it's great.
Yeah, that's fair play. I apologise if my wording of that question was so strangled it was unbelievable, but that tends to be what I do here. Now, in terms of going back to the real world side of things, it's a bit of a simple question, but it's one that we all want to ask, I'm sure. What is your favourite car and track combination that you've driven in real life, and why?
Ooh. That's a difficult question. I think if I do them separately, I mean, my favourite track I've ever driven is the Nordschleife in 2014.
Yeah.
That's definitely my favourite track. But to put a tracking car together that I've driven, it would have to be Spa in LMP3 in the Ligier. That's the best one I've done with a tracking car combo so far, anyway.
Well, obviously the question to follow that up is, how scary is Eau Rouge in real life? I imagine very.
If you've got aero, not too bad. But I went around there in a Porsche GT3 car on tyres that were about 12 years old, and when the rear goes at the top, it's pretty scary.
Yeah, I can imagine that's a squeaky bum time moment. That.
Yeah.
But you mentioned LMP3s. Now, I was lucky enough when I was on holiday in Italy a few years ago. I by chance just went down to Monza because we were about an hour down the road, and we saw the LMP3 cars testing there. They're unbelievably potent compared to what people tend to think, aren't they? They're really capable bits of kit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's kind of where I want to go with my own racing, back to the prototypes. But the cars are just absolutely fantastic pieces of machinery and works of art. They've developed quite a lot since I raced it. I think it was back in 2015. But just to look at, they're just, I could stand and look at one of them all day. They're just absolutely beautiful cars. And when you see them out on the track, I think in terms of the aero, the aero through the corners makes those things just, I'd say, easy to drive. But I mean, obviously, you've still got to be a good driver and a good peddler. But the way that they stick through the corners is absolutely unbelievable. It's something that obviously, sim racers that never really get to experience the real G forces and the way that you feel actually in a real race car. And, I'm quite lucky in that respect. And I probably most of the time pre-COVID take it for granted, how lucky we are to race these kind of cars. But yeah, nothing will beat for me the look and the feel of the prototype cars.
And obviously going from the real world to the sim racing world, same question again, really. What's your favourite car track combo on there? Because I think one of the beauties with sim racing is that you can be anywhere and drive anything, can't you?
Yeah, that is one of the great things of sim racing. Actually, you can jump in and drive some great cars. That's actually a trickier question because of that than what real life is, to be honest. Yeah, that's a tricky one. That'll take some thinking.
There's so much to choose from, isn't there? Because obviously with
really
mods and everything out there as well.
I'm just trying to think of what I've done. I think Kalami, actually, no, Bathurst. Is definitely my favourite track combination that I've driven the most on in a nice car. I say the car around there. I'm quite a fan of the Lexus, actually, around there. I'm a big Lexus fan, but which is a bit of an odd one. I do love the Lexus. I keep on going back to it. I'd say the Lexus at Bathurst is probably my favourite so far, I think.
And it is an interesting car, the Lexus, because of the fact that it's quite a bulky GT3 car, but in the same way as like the Nissan GTR, the Bentley Continental, they're both quite beefy in their own way. That sort of it spreads the weight well over all four wheels, doesn't it? The extra aero and everything that they have to even make them bulkier than normal is just what spreads them out. We actually had a question about the Lexus. We obviously got some questions from people online, and Celine Witcher asked, "Can we go Lexus on Lexus again around Silverstone?" It was a lovely battle in More Female Races Season 2.
Yes, I would love to get the Lexus out again at any next given opportunity. I actually run a fun race every Thursday for my community, so I might have to get the Lexus out. So if you want to come join us, Celine, you can definitely do that, and we'll relive that moment.
There you go, smashing stuff. And we had a question as well from Corbin1990 asking, how do the pre-race nerves compare in sim racing versus the real racing?
Kind of uncomparable for me, really. When I'm racing in my sim, I just get very hot and sweaty. It's very warm in this room. Whereas in real life racing, it's something that I've kind of got used to over the years. So I think, to be honest, in real life, my nerves have got worse as I've got older. But yeah, I don't really tend to tend to kind of feel the nerves as much in real life. I say in real life, I'm kind of surrounded by friends still. So my way of dealing with the nerves in real life is just having a laugh and a joke pre-race. It kind of gets rid of the nerves for me. But in sim racing, because I'm stuck in this one position in this seat, it gets very hot and very sweaty. So
I can vouch that I get very similar. That's why I don't really race much. I tend to just commentate because it's a lot easier for me to sit here and be able to move around a bit more. But it's interesting to see that, though, because I've spoken to a couple of drivers about that situation. You know, how nervous do you get for a sim race? And, you know, do you feel worse in the real world for it? And, you know, people in all disciplines from GT racing to touring cars. And everybody says in the sim, you just feel this added pressure and nobody can really explain why, because you've not got the risk of, you know, obviously going for worst case scenario, you've not got the risk of getting hurt or anything like that. You've not got risk of damaging the car. You don't have to really deal with the same physical G-forces as we discussed earlier, but still you get more nervous about it because maybe there's a bit more of an unknown who you're racing against, but it's hard to explain why, isn't it, really?
Yeah, it is. I think what most people that do sim racing don't look forward to is the first two corners. That is like, if you can survive the first two corners, I mean, you're onto a winner, really. I think I've done it about maybe 3-4 times because, you know, if you qualify, you kind of, you know, from, I'd say 8th kind of backwards, you know, you're in that midfield pack where anything can happen. And it's difficult to get the start right because you kind of want to hand back from the person in front. So you're not, you know, obviously misjudging your braking point and going into the back of them. But when you do that, the person behind you does what you didn't want to do, and then you get fired off. So it's really, I find it hard to judge the start in real life because you can't physically see, you know, the gap of and the distance of the cars kind of at the side of you or behind you. You can only see really what's in front of you. So I think the thing that people don't look forward to is always turn 1 and turn 2, especially at Monza.
You know what? As soon as you said looking forward to turns 1 and 2, the first track I thought of is Monza, and everybody just checking up on the braking zone on the way in because it's a pig of a corner. It's very entertaining, but it's an absolute pig of a corner on the first lap, and it's just always where the mayhem happens. I think whenever anybody sees Monza on a calendar, they think, "Oh, not that chicane again," but it's just part of the fun. Now, you briefly touched on it before, so I feel this question is already answered, but just in case we get some elaboration, I thought I'd ask again. What aspirations do you have in your motorsport career that we could potentially look forward to as fans, that you can at least tell us about at this point? Because we know that you racing drivers like to keep things under close wraps sometimes, don't you?
I don't have any kind of big plans as of yet, obviously. At the moment, I'm just doing the W Series, which is great because we're supporting Formula One this year. So if any of you in whatever country can make it to any of the tracks, it would be great to actually meet some of the people I've raced against in the virtual world. In my real life going forwards, obviously my ultimate goal is to race at Le Mans 24 hours. And to get there, obviously, there's various different ways. But I think after the W Series, I'm hoping to try and do Asian Le Mans Series this winter. And then from there, it kind of depends on the results from there as to where I would go from there, really. But the ultimate goal is obviously to become a professional driver, to be paid for what I love to do, whether it be in GTs or prototypes, really.
Yeah, and you mentioned Asian Le Mans Series. I'm very invested in that with Abruzzi, who sponsor RLR Motorsport, who run in LMP3. Funnily enough, would that be the category you're looking to go in LMP3s for that?
Yeah, exactly that. My brother won it himself in his first year. He went straight into Asian Le Mans Series and won it.
Brilliant.
And that's kind of what I want to go and do myself. I'd love to team up with my brother, but it depends on the regulations when we go and do it as to whether we actually can, because we're both FIA silver graded drivers. But that would be the dream, to go do Asian Le Mans Series with my brother.
And it seems like a very, very tough series in itself. I mean, they haven't always had the biggest grid of all the sort of endurance series that you get out there, but it seems that the caliber of drivers in that grid is just unbelievable. You know, you do get some drivers a bit further down the order that are still quite new to it, and it's their first venture into it. But at the same time, they use that as a real proving ground. So you never really know what you're going to get in that series year on year, do you?
No, exactly that. I mean, I only really started watching it when my brother went into it himself. And from then, the championship has really grown. I mean, a lot of people are attracted to it now because it brings you the entry for Le Mans, which is, you know, pretty big in a racing driver's point of view. I think that's why a lot of people go there now. So you do, like you say, you get such a big, caliber of drivers, but you still get the people that are relatively new to prototype racing, wanting to do it for the circuits and for the experience of driving a prototype car. But it has become a very, very challenging championship.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to see something grow like that, though, because a lot of the time, I mean, I'm sure you as much as I have seen series sort of come out of the woodwork a little bit, and then you think, oh, that'll be great, when they get more drivers and more teams in, that'll be awesome. And then some series, unfortunately, even at club level, they just don't take off in quite that way. But Asian Le Mans Series has always had the sort of formula to be exciting and to have what all the other endurance series around the world have that we so well know and love, and it's great to have seen it develop into that. So fingers crossed we'll see you in that one day, because it looks like a wonderful thing to be a part of.
Yeah.
Now, we've had another question actually from Barry Phipp on Twitter, and I've probably got his name wrong, knowing me, because I'm a commentator. That's what we do professionally. He's actually put a bit of a tongue-in-cheek one, actually. He's put, apart from family and friends, who would you say is your biggest fan?
He wants me to say Barry, that's what it is. Yeah, Barry's is a big fan of myself, Alice Powell, and Abby Pullen, who I'm really good friends with and race with. So yeah, he wants me to say Barry, but it's a tricky question, to be honest. I think other than family, my biggest fans are my friends from Ireland, Emma and Kales. I think they're probably my biggest fans, as well as Barry, obviously. So
the legend that is Barry, eh? Well, now, obviously, you mentioned that you have friends within the series as well. Sort of away from the series itself, what sort of socializing do you guys do with one another? Obviously, where possible throughout COVID and everything. Is there often meetups with you guys, or is it sort of you don't really see each other until the race meetings? What sort of mingling do you do?
Yeah, but I mean, because of COVID, we haven't been able to do anything, to be honest, yet. I'm hoping in the future that some of us within my Discord community can get together and attend some kind of track day in some country. I think that would be pretty cool. I can put my my coaching and racing side to good use, and they can enjoy the driving side, and with me kind of coaching them in the real world. I think that would be pretty cool for my community. But yeah, I mean, the girls that I like, Alice Powell and Abby, that I race against in the sim world, and I know in real life, we've met up a couple of times, but COVID's been pretty difficult with work, and obviously the guidelines that have been in place. So
yeah, it's certainly changed a lot of people's perspectives on things, as well as just changing what we can actually go and do. But it's a very positive time at the moment, with the world going back to normal slightly. I'm sure as much as I've found out as you have at the moment, European travel's been an absolute pain in the backside with all the testing and the amount of money it costs for COVID tests as well. It's absolutely done me over for this year, but it's part of the job, and it's part of the fun, I imagine, for some time to come yet. But we'll see. It's very positive. But any final questions from you, Sarah, before we sign off today?
I don't think so. I think I'm good. I'm yet to have my breakfast and my coffee, so I'm still not 100% awake yet. So no, I can't think of any right now, to be fair. I'm just thinking about food right now. So.
I always am. I'm in that boat with you, don't you worry. But it's been an absolute pleasure, Sarah. Thank you very much for joining us today, and hopefully we'll see you on track very, very soon again. But have yourself a fantastic day.
Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks very much for watching, everyone. We'll see you again soon.